I'm a magnet for miracles.
If we can just trust that, like, the miracle's already happening, it's already here for us. Maybe we just can't quite see it yet, and we just have to wait for it to, like, be
And
revealed.
I think
Like,
that we can be fully in our power as confident adults, and we can fully walk in wonder.
yeah, we need to embrace a little bit more of that magic.
It's never the same, and it's always a gift. Even within the expanse, there's space for you.
Yeah, it's bigger than me, and yet I matter.
Yeah.
And yet I'm an important part of it. I feel like that's the magic. If we choose to see it, that magic's all around us.
Every choice that we take ownership of and we move into, every part of our story is a gift. And it's just a matter of seeing it that way and of walking in it.
You can't help but leave a legacy because every life we touch makes a difference. Because then they go on to influence other people and on and on and on. It's this huge ripple effect that just is never ending.
Ripples are what change the current.
Yeah.
And so it's not about being the hurricane, it's about creating the ripples because that's what'll last and that's what'll change the current.
Get ready to love everything I am. All I want to be and understand. 'Cause I won't dim my light for no one.
They told me I had to pick one thing. No. Diamonds are multifaceted, and so are we. It's about time we let all the parts of us shine. How can we climb out of the box and fully embrace our own authenticity? I'm Kara Lee, and it's time for the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast, where clarity and creativity go hand in hand. Welcome back to the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. I'm so excited today. I have such a magical episode to share with you. I have my incredible friend, Amanda Ferrin, today, and she is just one of the most incredible, inspiring people that you are ever going to meet, and I'm just so thrilled that I finally get to air her episode. She is just one of my all-time favorite people. Amanda Ferrin is a walking miracle. 3.5 years ago, she was given a terminal prognosis and told that she only had 6 weeks left to live. She chose to take every moment gifted to her as a miracle, and because of that incredible outlook and a series of events that you could only call miraculous, she's still here today shining her light. She says, the perspective I think one gains is a gift when life is lived through the lens that every day is numbered. The thing is, all our days are numbered, and I believe you're probably living a miracle too. You may not be dying from a terminal illness, but we all have brokenness and pain, hopes and fears. I've realized my miracle is only going to be my message if I use my perspective and pain as fuel for my purpose. There's purpose in the mess. We are all dying, but the win is if we can find ourselves also living, walking miracles. I'm so thrilled to share Amanda's story with you today, and I know that you're going to find so much magic in this episode and so much just purpose as you listen to Amanda's story and you learn about how you can magnetize miracles into your own life. It's really just life-changing to hear from her and hear her story. So let's dive right in.
I'm so excited to be here. This is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, so I feel honored to be a guest.
Well, I've been so dying to have you as a guest, and it's finally here. So, yay. So, I am hoping that you will give us a little bit of background on your story, just so for context, so everybody can have an idea of where you're coming from. But then I really want to focus on how you get to do all the things that you really love, like Disneyland and maybe anything else that you just really love to do.
Okay,
So, yeah.
well, so a little bit of background on me. is that I am a walking miracle.
I know.
I leave every explanation of myself with that because truly my life is a living testimony that miracles do happen. And the truth is that over the last few years, since I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and then a couple years after being diagnosed with a terminal illness, I was given a very dire prognosis that um, initially, with the illness that I have, they say that you can live 7 to 9+ years. But because of infection and inflammation and just a whole series of events, I was given 6 weeks, at most 6 months to live. And at that point, I really made a decision that if I had one more day or one more week or however long I had left, I would choose to live every day as the miraculous gift that it was. And by doing so, I have lived a series of miracles upon miracles. You can't make this stuff up moments. And I am alive 3+ years later and 1,000+ days beyond what any doctor ever predicted. And more than that, I have lived countless miraculous moments. And those moments have added up into a miracle story. And while I continue to daily face challenges and health situations that feel like huge setbacks, I also have to see them as setups for miracle stories and invitations to open my hands. And rather than pull back from the hard and the broken pieces, to open my hands to see those pieces be made into a beautiful collage of moments and people and experiences. So that's a little bit about me.
I know, I love it. And I have heard your story a few times. So every single time that I hear it, it inspires me so, so much. And tell us a little bit about, I know that you've broken a lot of bones and you've experienced so many miracles. Is there any one that sticks out to you that was particularly amazing?
Wow. I guess there's there's been so many, and so often they kind of add one onto the other. And one though that I was thinking about recently was I had a and I guess this one that I was thinking about is kind of a cool thing because a lot of times I think people hear my story and they think, well, I don't have a terminal illness or I haven't broken 25 bones. So the way she lives is just so, something unrelatable. And so maybe in that same way, my miracles seem unrelatable. But I was thinking about how I live in California right now, and I moved out here because I need to be in a place with sea level and pretty climate that is not like too cold, because if I am in any kind of extreme cold, my hands and my feet, because I have something called Raynaud syndrome, it just is like a really bad situation. So
Which
all
actually
that,
my husband has that, so I'm actually familiar with Renat's.
yeah, it's actually one of the more common diagnoses
Yeah.
that is a complication of scleroderma. And so a lot of people can relate to that. And so your poor husband out in Utah.
Well, and you've got to be in a place that like doesn't exacerbate your condition. Like your body needs as little stress as possible.
And the reality that because my condition and my diagnosis, which is scleroderma, sim scleroderma, And there's so few of that diagnosis, even in the world. There's really only a few medical centers that are equipped to treat that. And that was like UCLA, Johns Hopkins, and in Princeton, and places that I'm like, that's way too cold, Maryland, New York, all that. So all that to say that when I moved out here, I had been using what is called a hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber, which is a whole nother story of saving my life. But before I moved out to California, I knew that I needed this treatment on a pretty consistent basis. And I also knew I needed to be in a place like California, but I didn't have a place that I was living, and I didn't have a chamber. But I just knew that I had been accepted into the program at UCLA. I was like, I have to live there. And so I was walking with my mom on Balboa Island, which is this cute little quaint island in Newport Beach. And we were walking one day, and it was while we were visiting California. And I saw this sign in this window, and it was for an apartment, and they were having an open house after my mom was already going to have gone back to Colorado, and I was still going to be here. And they ended up going to this open house. And long story long, it was probably 3 times more than the rent I couldn't afford. But it was the cutest, most perfect apartment. And I moved in, and none of this is actually the miracle story. The crazy miracle story is I ended up living there throughout my 6-month lease, and then we ended up extending it a couple months later. And when I moved out, I had been really sick for a couple of weeks, and I actually had pneumonia, and I'd been hospitalized, but part of my illness does affect my lungs, and so we just thought it was part of that. Well, we went to move my coats and all my clothing from my closet, and we discovered when we moved it all that the whole back of the closet was covered in black mold. And I had been living in this black mold
And like a death trap.
Yes, exactly. And then the more we looked, that we started to see mold, and it was overwhelming. And the good news was we were moving out of the apartment. But that day, some friends came over, and they went to like move some of my bigger furniture. We ended up having to throw a lot of things away. But even one of the like strong 6 foot, 200 plus pound guys that was moving ended up in the ER that night because of breathing this mold.
Wow.
And I had been living there. And so I was sitting there going like, okay, I know I was sick, but like I'm a very medically compromised person. Like, how did I make it? And we were looking up treatments for how to like recover from mold toxicity. And it was crazy because at the level of mold in my apartment should have honestly, with my health, probably killed me. But if you read the treatment for mold, one of the only like surefire ways to take care of it is hyperbaric oxygen therapy,
which is what you were doing.
The chamber happened to be in the room next door to my bedroom. It was a small 2-bedroom. And so in that room, there was no mold. And I sleep more often than not in my chamber. I don't even generally sleep in my bed because I do 2 treatments a day. And so literally by having this chamber that really was not the plan, and we never would have imagined this totally redone apartment that would be ended up being covered in mold. I was basically treating something that I didn't even know I was facing, and it was saving my life. And it was a miracle that I didn't even know was happening, that had been put into place that I could never have orchestrated. And so these are the crazy stories. And this is one of just a million stories.
Yeah.
that I couldn't make up.
I
But
know. I'm like, I've heard so many of your stories, and that one I've never heard before. And
yeah,
I'm like, what? Like
and
my
so
jaw's on the
I was just
floor.
thinking like today, so often. So I treat in my chamber twice a day, or twice a night, really. And last night I was actually in the ER for a totally different reason. And so rather than do my normal treatments at night, I did one this morning. And every time that I am in that chamber, and every time that I get in, and every time that I get out, I'm reminded of the miracle, the gift that people made a GoFundMe and raised the money for me to have this chamber. And it's an incredible blessing, but it's not just a daily blessing for my health. It dramatically has saved my life multiple times in ways that I didn't even know. And I think it's just a really good reminder that sometimes we are looking toward a miracle to fix something that we know is broken, but sometimes we are living out a miracle and a miracle story, and things are coming together for us when we don't even realize that things are broken. And it gives me hope to just keep walking in faith and to keep taking each step forward, because we don't know what we're taking a step into. And so rather than walk in fear, I believe we can walk in faith, knowing that it's all already going to work out. It may not look like we thought it was going to, and it may not be comfortable, and we may have a little bit of pneumonia, but we may survive beyond what we ever thought we had set against us.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, and it's like the plan's already laid. If we can just trust that, like, the miracle's already happening, it's already here for us. Maybe we just can't quite see it yet. And we just have to wait for it to, like, be revealed. Like, how amazing that, like, you had that moment of, like, awareness of sudden understanding when everything started, when you started moving out, and it was like, oh my gosh, here's the answer and the reason. And it's like, this is my life's been being saved over and over and over again. And you didn't even see it. Like, how many times in our lives are
Mhm.
we being saved? Are we being held? Or we aren't saying it?
Mhm.
Like, oh my gosh. So you have all of this every single day. You're such a walking miracle. You never stop moving. You walk 30,000 steps a day, and it blows me away. I did a little impromptu speech at Toastmasters yesterday, and they asked, like, if you ever had to be in a rehab facility, like, what would you want to bring with you? And I was like, I would bring Amanda Ferrin with me because she would kick my butt and make sure that I never stopped moving. That's what I would want with
No, I
me.
bring you a pen and a paper to sign yourself out, because that's my
Right. I'm like,
advice.
I would need Amanda because she's the one who would help me the very most. But through all of this that you've been through, you have just the most amazing light. Like, you have not stopped finding things that light you up. So now I want to talk about your most favorite place in the world and all the ways in which that has helped you to navigate this difficult journey you've been on. The other most amazing spot. I mean, I guess there's two because there's the beach, but there's also Disneyland.
Oh, you know me so
I
well.
do.
Those are the two for sure. And I could talk about each in definitely. So which one do we want to park on for a bit?
Let's start with Disneyland because I know you've had some miraculous stories of like getting Disneyland passes and the way that like magic is everywhere, to be sure, but Disneyland has its own special brand of magic that it just brings out in people.
Yeah. You know, I think that I have read a lot about Walt Disney. I read a lot about the company of Disney. I was actually a cast member for all of about 48 hours, and I went through the training and I fell more in love with Disney. But I think that there are people that are put on this earth, and we as humans are so blessed when those people that have something special live it out to the fullest, and they don't, they don't question, and they aren't swayed by what opinions will say. And this is a story I had heard for many years, and I've even heard it recounted by some people that we share circles with, of the time that Walt first flew over the space that was going to be Disney and got emotional, not because of the landscape or all of the ideas, but he saw the people there and he saw what could be. And I think that there's something deposited in the soil of a dream that I feel that when I am walking around Disney, of the expectation of what could be. And when I think that there's a lot of situations in my life, and even some very recent ones, where I have had to open myself up to receive in a way that feels beyond, something that is comfortable. And to look at it, and I hate to think like, oh, I'm a charity case, or oh, I'm weak, or anything like that. And I've in the last, like, because I talk about miracles all the time, I've reframed it in the last couple weeks, seeing some of these things that doctors that really have opened up their hearts and their possibilities in a way that blows my mind. And what I've chosen to see myself as is, rather than it be a charity case or this like medically compromised, weak person, is I'm a magnet for miracles. And I draw that out. And I think that's what Disney does, is it's like this magnet for magic. And when you walk in, most people that I know that walk into Disney, the way they've even set it up is you walk in and it's like instantly you are bombarded with magic, with possibility, with joy, with all, like, with a castle, all with royalty, with all of these things that cause you to leave the world behind. And that was something that Walt was so intentional about, is that when you walked into Disney, you didn't see the landscape of Anaheim. You didn't see anything other than Disney. And it was like, and that's why they call it lands. Like, you go to this land and you are truly transported there. And I think that some people might think, and there's probably some truth to this, that I have a little bit of an escapism complex where, like,
and who could blame you? I mean,
exactly. See, thank you for that validation. But like, that's part of it. But I think we all want that. And I think it sometimes culture labels escapism as this bad thing. But if we are taking like our own, life in our hands and saying, you know what, for right now, I'm going to accept that I have a terminal illness, and I'm going to accept that life is really difficult, and I'm going to accept this laundry list. That is all fact. That is all true. And I know that going to Disney doesn't actually change any of that. But I can also allow myself to step into a world beyond that, and to choose joy in a moment, or to ride a roller coaster and to forget all of the situations of the day, because those situations, they're very real, and I'm not leaving them behind. I'm just choosing to live in joy. And we can all choose that. And some people aren't. I've been very blessed in the last 4 years of this journey that I've lived within a couple hours of either Disney World or Disneyland for most of that time. And I've been blessed with Disney passes for most of that time. But it doesn't have to be that. When I'm in Colorado, there's a lake at a 5-star resort that my mom and I love to go and walk around. And I was going to say I've never stayed at this resort, but then again, I have another miracle story of being gifted an overnight stay and brunch there last Thanksgiving. So I can't even say I've never stayed at this 5-star resort anymore. But prior to that, I had never stayed there. But my mom and I would go and walk around this beautiful lake with fountains and swans and all the things. And we'd go to the coffee shop at the resort that, you pay too much for this cup of coffee and the muffins are $7. But it was this choice of like, you know what? I had a blood transfusion that went bad and my arms are all messed up today. But at the end of the day, we're going to go walk around this lake and we're going to choose to just take a few moments. And we can all take those moments, in big ways or small ways. And so what I love is that Disney makes it easy. And
Yeah,
so
I think that dreaming is not the same thing as escaping, and allowing yourself to feel joy and to to be in the sunshine and revel in it and to live your best life, that's not the same thing as escaping.
right. And even like, I think that, you think of Peter Pan and like the Peter Pan complex and whatever. And it's like, what if he was right? Like, what if like running away to an island and being not wanting to grow up and all those things, like, what if choosing a little bit of that allows us to stay in a state of childlike? I mean, it says faith is so important to me. And it says so often in the Bible to have a childlike faith. Like,
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with that. We often appreciate the wonder of a child, and yet we value and we put on a pedestal this idea of being a grown-up and being in our authority and our girl bossness and all that kind of stuff. But I'm a big believer, Kimberly, I'm a big believer in the both. And
Yeah.
I think that we can be fully in our power as confident adults, and we can fully walk in wonder.
Yeah, we need to embrace a little bit more of that magic.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So how has the ability to go to Disneyland, even if it's just for a little bit of time, with your health, how has the ability to go to Disneyland, helped your health and helped how you helped your life?
Yeah, I think that we are given choices every day, and we can choose. For me, I can't do I of all of this time. I mean, I've probably gone to Disney or Disneyland or World hundreds of times in the last few years. I don't think I've gone a full like park open to park close full day one time. I can't physically do it.
Yeah.
And there's things at Disney that I can't do. And I think that that's what makes it special, is that I get to choose if when I walk in the day that I'm going to have. And, there's times that I end up getting on ride after ride and never having to wait in line because this happened and this came through. And there's days that I'm like, I can't stand in an hour line, and that's all there is. And on those days, sometimes you just walk around the park and all of a sudden you see something that you never saw before. Or Disney like is crazy and pipes in smells, different in different lands. And you walk down Main Street and they've like put in the scents of like fairs and that kind of thing. And to just let I I think that what keeps me going in hard moments is when I can just feel like I am a normal human and I can just be, and I don't have to worry and all those things. And so I think sometimes it's just I can smell the smells and I can feel my feet on the ground. And sometimes I can have amazing, I got to skip all the line moments and I beat the Disney system, and sometimes I don't. And like it's still though, every bit of it is, it's never the same and it's always a gift.
Oh, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And I'm so glad that you get to experience that. I'm so glad for that. So let's talk about the ocean and the beach and the sunsets because I have such a place in my heart for those because I grew up on the coast for a little bit and I just have a soft spot in my heart for the ocean and sunsets, and I know that you do too.
Mhm. I do. And I think even as I talk about both Disney and the ocean, and I notice, we right now are face to face on a Zoom call. And what I love is that I know behind the scenes, you had asked me prior to us recording this interview if I really felt up to it. And in my head, I kind of was like, no, not really. But I knew kind of what we were going to be speaking about. And even though I don't, I'm probably not going to be driving today and I won't necessarily be going to the ocean or to Disney. Just the thought and the marinating on these things that can bring me joy, we're both looking at each other smiling. We have this joy and this lightness to this conversation. And so I knew I needed this. I needed this
Yeah.
conversation today. And I
Well,
think,
and the truth is that, like, no matter how I'm feeling, like, podcast interviews and, like, even talking to you, like, it doesn't matter how I feel before, like, I always feel my spirit lifted after a podcast interview. Like, talking about the things that light us up, it is like we don't even have to be doing them. Like,
yeah.
it just lifts your spirits so much to just, like, imagine walking along the beach and seeing the sunsets and like feeling your feet in the sand. Like if you can just picture that in your mind right now, like you already feel peaceful and like your spirit feels free. Or like picturing like smelling those smells at Disneyland and the mindful experience of just like being there. And I haven't been to Disneyland since I was in middle school.
Mhm.
Like, that was because I used to live down there, and, like, that was the last time I was there, and but yet I can still picture it, and, like, when you when you really imagine those things, like, it is life-changing, like, it will change your whole moment, and the more that we can allow ourselves that experience, like, it will calm your whole nervous system, it will help you become present to the moment, and it's a really great tool.
Yes. And I think that is something that when when I'm walking on a beach and I'm enjoying the sunset, or I'm taking the video and I'm a few days later sitting in a transfusion chair and I'm looking at that video, I think that in a way, I feel that same hope and that same lightness either place. And I think you're right. It's a tool that we can have. It's, when we close our eyes and we look back at those moments, what we're really doing by closing our eyes is looking inward and seeing what made me feel that way. What changed my nervous system? What can I do? And I think that that level of self-directedness is so important to I mean, I know there's like the words like manifestation and all of those things, and I am not an expert in any of that. But what I do know that I know is that what we choose to live out guides how we experience our days.
Yeah.
And so, why do I love the ocean? Because it's never the same. And yet, if it's a cloudy, dark day or it's a beautiful sunny day, the water is always beautiful, no matter the color. And if it's a beautiful, still, like glass ocean, or if there's waves and tumultuous, and there's dolphins and there's all these things, like you just never know. And yet there's something so calming about the idea that it's always going to be there. And no matter how it looks, it's always going to meet you where you're at. And
Yeah.
I don't have to show up. I mean, there's been so many beach walks that I have cried from the moment I left my car till the moment I got back in my car. And it's like, it's a safe spot to hold my tears and my emotions. And I I think that for me, again, I wouldn't call it like escapism, but I do feel like sometimes for me, going somewhere and experiencing something and then being able to leave it there and know that it'll be there when I get back,
Yeah.
whenever that is. But I carry myself wherever I go.
Mm.
And I can carry my hope and my experiences wherever I go, whether the ocean's there or not.
Yeah. I used to, like I said, I grew up by the ocean, and what was funny for me was that I never went as often as I thought I would go.
Yeah.
And like my family still lives out there, and my
Most
sister
people
has
say
made,
that.
yeah, right. Like a lot of people who live out there are like, I should go more often. And my sister now goes, she's made like a promise that she goes every month and she'll take a picture. But now I live by the mountains and I get to see the mountains every time I'm driving anywhere because they're, you can't miss them, right? They're
Yeah.
very big and present. But what I'm finding with both the ocean and the mountains is just that like that huge expansive presence
Mhm.
just is so awe-inspiring to me of like there's so much like greatness out there. They're so magnanimous. They're so like the ocean is so expansive. It's so much bigger than me. That's what I think every time I'm driving around and I see those mountains. And it just makes me feel like not small, but like, oh, I was so wrapped up in my own problems. And there's so much more out there that my problems seem a lot less significant all of a sudden. Now
There's
that
so
I'm,
much, there's so much more, and yet I
yeah,
feel like at the same time, we're a piece of it. Like
yeah,
for you, you've FaceTimed me or sent me pictures of this specific park that you go to
yeah,
within the beauty of the mountains. And it's like even within the expanse, there's space for you. And
yeah,
there's a place that in the midst, it's like I think it's a pic, like kind of like this metaphor of the bigger world. Like there's a huge world, but we have a piece and a part to play in the world. And like for me, there are specific beaches that mean something to me. And yes, the ocean is always beautiful, but give me an option to go anywhere or to go to Laguna Beach and be at my spot. And there's just something even different about that. There's a million theme parks, but let me walk around the Disney that I know, and I feel a part of something huge. And the world is going on around me, and there's hundreds of thousands of people that visit every day, and they're not seeing me. And yet I am there, and it
yeah.
matters for me.
Yeah, it's bigger than me, and yet I matter.
Yeah.
And yet I'm an important part of it. And that's I don't know, I feel like that's the magic of nature. That's the magic of the mountains for me and the ocean. And that's the magic of Disney. And that's, if we choose to see it, that magic's all around us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because we can be anywhere. And again, I go back to like we show up as ourselves and we carry ourselves anywhere. And so it's,
Yeah.
how am I a part of this moment? And being that mindfully aware person that says, like, I'm going to be in this moment. And
Yeah.
by being in this moment and by seeing, that's why when I talk about every step I take, I I go back to it being a miracle. Because
Yeah.
for me, I shouldn't be able to walk. And so truly every step that I take is a miracle. But for all of us, every choice that we take ownership of and we move into, every part of our story is a gift. And it's just a matter of seeing it that way and of walking in it.
So true. And I've heard you talk a lot about leaving a legacy, and it's just been on my mind and my heart a lot. And as I've thought about it, I realized that, like, because every step we take, we are in this world, we are influencing people. Like, we can't help but leave a legacy because every life we touch makes a difference. Because then they go on to influence other people, and on and on and on. It's this huge ripple effect that just is never ending. Like, every time that you speak, you are touching someone's heart, and it matters and it makes a difference. Like, your legacy, it's set in stone. It's not going anywhere. It matters. It makes a difference. And, like, we can't force a legacy, but we are already creating it with every person's heart that we touch, with
Yeah.
every time that we interact with somebody, with every move we make. We are creating that legacy.
And so I think at that point, it's just a matter of living intentionally and
Yes.
saying, okay, what is the legacy? Because I know, I think that I am constantly holding this weight of feeling like my time is limited. And it's sometimes it makes my legacy journey, if you will, feel so heavy
Yeah.
because I want to use every moment I have to matter.
Yeah.
And yet it all matters.
It
It's not
does.
about carrying the weight of it, it's about walking in it.
Hmm.
And if I just choose to remember, it's not something to be burdened by. It's something that I can be strengthened in and to be empowered to just be the person for whoever is on the other side of me. And
Yeah.
to know that that love that I carry, that hope that I carry, the joy that I want to give away, it doesn't need to, it truly, ripples are what change the current.
Yeah.
And so it's not about being the hurricane. It's about creating the ripples because that's what'll last. And that's what'll change the current.
Yeah. Yeah, and your legacy is a gift. And we've all been gifted by it, and I feel like what you have to give is so much love. Like, the miracle that you are exemplifying for all of us is the way that you see people in such a light of love. It's such a beautiful example for all of us. And I'm so thankful for you.
I'm thankful for you. And I'm thankful that what we see so often in others is just a mirror of what we are.
It's
And
true.
I only know that and believe that because so often what you reflect to me is what I see in you. And
Yeah.
so I think get around those people that you see in them what you want to see in yourselves. And I think there's a good chance that that's already what you're reflecting back to others.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, as we wrap up, how can we find you and follow you and read your book, because by the time this airs, your book's going to be out, Amanda.
Well, I think that it is truly all about the legacy that I'm hoping to build and the story of miracles that I want to tell through my story of miracles and through the miracles of people sharing. And so you can find me at It's a Miracle Story on Instagram and join the Miracle Movement on Facebook and just be a part of a community of people that are celebrating and seeing everyday miracles.
I love it so much. Thank you. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. I know that we can never be told too many times how amazing we are, so in case you haven't been told today, you are a freaking rock star. When you let yourself shine, you allow other people to take off their filters and shine brightly too. It's about time someone gave you permission to be all of you. If you enjoyed this show, please leave me a review and hit that subscribe button. I know you want more of this. Sharing is caring. Let someone you love know how incredible they are by texting them the link to this episode. They will feel so good just knowing that you thought about them. Lastly, if you want to know more about my courses and coaching, be sure to check out my website for up-to-date details on everything I have available. It's caroleegarrison.com and the link is in the show notes. Always remember that you are a diamond. Don't let anyone dim your sparkle.